Okay, so we're on Algebra 1, Section 7.5, and we are really entering into the most important part of second semester Algebra 1 is factoring, especially factoring quadratics, which is what this is. When the degree of a trinomial is 2, this is a quadratic. It's going to look like a parabola when you graph it. And this trinomial is going to have binomial factors. So let's just jump into some examples. So I want to factor x squared plus 10x plus 16. This is a trinomial. I know that I'm going to set up these parentheses, and my first terms are going to be x, because that's the only way to get x squared is x times x is x squared. So I want you to, for every one of these problems, set up these parentheses first, okay, and put your x's in there. So we know all the signs are positive, so this is going to be plus and this is going to be plus. We don't have to worry about a negative sign in there. And these two numbers, whatever goes here, because remember when I FOIL, the last terms create this last term in the trinomial. So these two numbers have to have a product of 16. Like I said, the last term in the trinomial, and a sum of 10. So a product of 16 and a sum of 10. So you're going to look at 16, and let's factor 16. It's 1 times 16, 4 times 4, or 8 times 2. All of these products will be 16, but this is the only factorization where if I add those two together, I'm going to get 10. So the factorization is going to be x plus 8 times x plus 2. So if you FOIL this, should get what you started with, right? Okay, so the first terms is x times x is x squared. The outside term, 2 times x is 2x. The inside, 8 times x is 8x. And the last terms multiplied together, 8 times 2 is 16. Remember, I add those two together because they're like terms. And I end up with x squared plus 10x plus 16, which is what we started with. All right, so we're going to factor this trinomial. This time we have that pesky minus, so we're going to have to deal with that. So yeah, notice that the middle term is negative. So you're going to set up your parentheses. I know that x times x has to go there because that's the only way to get x squared. Notice that the last term is positive, so that means both of these signs have to be the same. But the middle term is negative, so the signs have to be negative. You can't get a positive last term by having a positive and a negative factors in here. All right, so this time the factors of 12 have to have a sum of negative 8. So if you factor 12, here's the factors of 12. 1 times 12, 3 times 4, 6 times 2. This is the only one that if I add those two up, I'm going to get 8, right? So the factorization of this trinomial would be x minus 2 times x minus 6. If I FOIL this, the first terms multiplied together is x squared. The outside is negative 6x. The inside is negative 2x. And the last, negative 2 times negative 6 is positive 12. Add those two together, and you get negative 8x, which is what I started with. We're gonna take a lot of time to practice this kind of factoring because it's, like I said, it's the most important part of the whole second semester. If I mean, if you don't get factoring down, everything we do after this is going to be really, really difficult. So we're going to do our best to get through this. So what happens if the last term of the trinomial is negative, like this one? Well, that means that I'm going to have a plus and a minus. So you're going to set up your parentheses first. I want you guys to remember that if you're working on your worksheets and you need some help from me, like you come up and say, Kathy, I don't know how to do number 12. If you don't already have the parentheses set up and the X's in place, I'm not going to help you. I'm going to say, go set up the problem. All right, so this is the setup. I know it's going to look like that. So because the last term is negative, you have to have one positive and one negative, because that's the only way to get a negative last term is to have a negative times a positive. And I want to know what factors of 32, instead of a sum this time, have a difference of 4. So again, we're gonna factor our last term, 32, 1 times 32, 2 times 16, 4 times 8. You will see that if I find the difference of 4 and 8, 8 minus 4 is a positive 4. So my factors, because this term is positive, my largest product has to be positive. So 8 times x is 8x. The outside would be negative 4x. And if I add those two together, I get a positive 4x. So I end up with what I started with. And that is it for 7.5.